Claire Thomas was standing beside my SUV with a suitcase in one hand, a navy baseball cap pulled low over her hair, and the kind of smile people use when they are one sentence away from asking for help. I had my backpack over one shoulder and the driver's door open. The morning was too bright for trouble. Sunlight moved across the quiet suburban street, turning the windows of the houses gold. Sprinklers ticked over trimmed lawns. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked at nothing important. It, it should have been the kind of day where people drove to brunch, picked up groceries, or pretended the weekend belonged to them. But Claire had a suitcase. And Claire never traveled light unless something was wrong. She lived in the White House beside mine, the one with black shutters, climbing roses, and a detached workshop behind the garage. For 9 months, I had known her mostly through sounds. The scrape of sandpaper at dusk, the steady tap of a small hammer, the old radio she played when restoring antique doors. She restored houses for a living. I moved boats for a living. We were both people who knew how to repair things that other people had already given up on. That was probably why we rarely talked. Repair work made you private. "You're leaving?" she asked. I lifted the backpack higher on my shoulder. Port Haven. Boat survey at the marina. 3 days if the inspector is honest. 5, if he talks too much. Her smile flickered. Port Haven. The way she repeated it told me this was not coincidence. Yes. She looked down at her suitcase, then back at me. "I heard you say yesterday that you needed a travel partner." I said I needed someone to keep me awake on the highway, because coastal radio after noon is mostly weather reports and men arguing about fishing permits. That still counts. Claire. She moved the suitcase handle from one hand to the other. That was when I noticed the document bag under her cardigan. Waterproof. Zipped. Held too close to be clothing or makeup. Paperwork. Legal paperwork. "I need to go to Port Haven too," she said. "What happened?" Her eyes shifted once toward her own front door. The house looked peaceful from the street. Black door. White trim. Flowers in ceramic pots. But the porch light was still on, even though the sun was high, and one of the upstairs curtains moved slightly before going still. Someone inside? No, Claire lived alone. At least she had until this morning. "My brother moved the settlement meeting," she said. "Adrian's lawyer sent notice at 6. Port Haven Records Office. Today. 4 o'clock. If I don't appear, he can push the title transfer into emergency review." I closed the SUV door slowly. "Your workshop?" "The workshop, the duplex, the carriage house, and the coastal lot behind them." She swallowed once. All of it. There it was. The reason behind the suitcase? Claire's father had left her the old family property near Port Haven. A weather-beaten restoration workshop, a half-collapsed carriage house, and the duplex she now lived in during off-season projects. Her brother Adrian had received the liquid assets and still decided land was easier to envy than money. For months, he had been trying to prove the deed transfer was unclear, hoping to force a sale before Claire could finish registering the trust documents. I knew pieces of the story because small towns were bad at keeping legal fights quiet. I did not know it had reached this point. "Why not drive yourself?" I asked. "My car is at the shop. Brake line." She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "The mechanic said it looks like a clean failure." I asked him if clean failures usually happen the same morning a settlement meeting gets moved. He stopped laughing. My grip tightened once around the backpack strap. "Do you think Adrian touched your car?" "I don't know." Her voice stayed careful. "But I know he called my rideshare driver by name before I ever told anyone I booked one." The street stayed sunny. The threat changed color anyway. Adrian did not need to drag her anywhere. He only needed to make every normal route feel unreliable until she missed the deadline. "You called the police?" "I called Mr. A. Davis first. My lawyer. He said the brake line issue is hard to prove quickly. He can file an objection. But if I'm not there by 4, Adrian uses my absence to argue I've abandoned the claim." "Why ask me?" "Because you're going to Port Haven." She looked at the backpack, then at the SUV. "Because you know that road. Because you don't panic when plans change. And because if I go alone, Adrian will make the whole room about how unstable I am." I opened the passenger door, then stopped. This mattered. She was under pressure. That meant every offer had to leave room for refusal. "There are 3 options," I said. 1. I drive you to Port Haven and stay outside unless you ask me to witness something. 2. I take you to the bus station and call Davis so he can meet you there. 3. I help you find another driver and delay my trip until I know you have one. Claire watched me carefully. You're giving me options? You're the one whose property is on the line. Her fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. If you drive me, she said, I need one more thing. What? Then don't let me go back alone. The words were quiet, not dramatic, not romantic, practical. The kind of sentence said by someone who understood that getting to the fight was only half the problem. Returning after, it might be harder. I looked at the house behind her. The curtain upstairs did not move again. Maybe it had been wind. Maybe I was reading patterns where none existed. But Claire's hands were still tense, and the document bag stayed pressed against her side. Okay, I said, but we do this. Clean. Davis knows you're with me. You share your location with him. We stop at the police station if the mechanic sends anything suspicious about the brake line. I don't speak for you in the meeting unless you ask. And if at any point you want another plan, we change the plan. Her shoulders lowered by 1 careful inch. Okay. I took the suitcase only after she nodded. She climbed into the passenger seat, placed the document bag on her lap, and looked at her own house through the window as if it might change shape while she was gone. I put the suitcase in the back. Then I got behind the wheel. Before I started the engine, she said, Ethan? Yes? Thank you for not asking if I'm overreacting. I turned the key. The engine came alive. If someone moves a legal deadline, your car fails, your rideshare gets identified, and your brother profits from your absence, I said, you are reacting exactly enough. For the first time that morning, Claire smiled like she meant it. We pulled away from the curb at 8. 25. Adrian called. Claire's phone lit up in her hand. She did not answer. Good. At 8:27, he called again. At 8:29, a text appeared. You're making this uglier than it needs to be. You can still sign remotely and save everyone the embarrassment. Claire stared at it. Do not answer, I said. I wasn't going to. You look like you were about to write a very polite paragraph. She blinked, then gave me a look. I'm a restorer. I believe almost anything can be repaired with enough patience. Your brother is not a door. No, she said. Doors are more honest. That almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, I said, screenshot it. Send it to Davis. She did. Then she turned the phone face down on the console. The highway opened ahead of us, clean and bright, bordered by tall grass and glimpses of the coast. For the first hour, we spoke only about practical things. Arrival time, records, office address, Mr. Davis's phone number, where the original trust documents were stored, what Adrian wanted, what Claire would and would not agree to. The more she explained, the clearer the trap became. Her father had created a secondary deed of trust 2 years before his death, transferring the workshop and coastal property to Claire because she had been the one maintaining it, restoring it, paying taxes on it, and turning the carriage house into a future classroom for restoration apprentices. Adrian claimed the trust was defective, not because he had proof, because delay itself was leverage. If the title moved into emergency review, Claire's clients would pause contracts. If contracts paused, cash flow tightened. If cash flow tightened, Adrian could claim she lacked the means to maintain the property. Then he would push sale as the reasonable option. He doesn't need to win fast, I said. No, Claire answered. He needs me to get tired. I looked at the road. That is a common strategy for men who can't build anything. She turned toward me. You say things like that often? Only when they're accurate. She leaned back, the document bag still on her lap. Adrian always said restoration was sentimental work. He called my workshop a museum for broken things. What did your father call it? Claire looked out the window. A second chance with walls. That stayed in the SUV longer than either of us expected. At 10:12, mister. Davis called. Claire put him on speaker. Where are you? He asked. North Coastal Highway. Claire said. Ethan is driving. We should reach Port Haven before 2. Good Adrian's lawyer has already arrived at the records office. They are trying to frame this as a final settlement conference instead of a procedural title review. Claire closed her eyes. Can they do that? They can try. They cannot force a final settlement without your informed consent. Bring the deed packet, the contractor invoices, and the tax records. Claire touched the document bag. I have them. Davis continued. Also, do not meet Adrian alone. Not in the hallway. Not in the parking lot. Not for a coffee before the meeting. If he approaches you, say you will speak only with counsel present. Claire looked at me. I nodded once. Davis added, Mr. Scott? Yes, you are there as transportation and witness only, unless Claire asks otherwise. Understood. No heroics. I dislike heroics. Claire made a soft sound. Davis said good. I'll see you at 2. The call ended. Claire looked at me. You dislike heroics? I dislike unstructured risk. That might be the least romantic sentence ever spoken. This is not a romance. She looked back to the road. No, she said softly. It's a title dispute. Neither of us said anything for a while after that. At uns presece. 30. We stopped at a roadside diner because Claire had not eaten. She insisted she was fine. I ordered 2 coffees, 2 egg sandwiches, and a side of toast because people in legal emergencies often lied about hunger with impressive confidence. She stared at the plate when it arrived. I don't think I can eat. You don't have to finish it. You do have to start. Do you command everyone like a boat crew? Only people carrying deed packets on empty stomachs. She picked up the sandwich, took 1 bite, then another. By the 3rd bite, her hands stopped shaking. Relief did not always look like a confession. Sometimes it looked like protein. The waitress came by with more coffee and glanced at the document bag. Court? She asked. Claire nodded. Family? Claire nodded again. The waitress poured coffee into both mugs. Then don't go in there hungry. Claire stared after her as she walked away. She just gave the same advice as you. She used fewer words. I liked hers better. She didn't have to drive. Claire smiled. A real one? At the next booth, 2 older men argued about tide charts. Through the diner window, my SUV sat in the sun, Claire's suitcase visible through the back glass. For the first time since we left, the thumbnail version of the morning made sense. A woman with a suitcase, a man with a backpack, a quiet house behind them, and a trip that looked almost ordinary if you did not know what waited at the other end. But ordinary things could carry enormous stakes. A suitcase could mean escape, or evidence, or the decision not to be cornered. When we reached the mechanic outside Port Haven, the brake issue stopped feeling like bad luck. Claire had called ahead and asked him to email photos to Davis, but I wanted to see the car before the records office if we had time. The mechanic, a broad man named Tom with gray hair and oil permanently embedded in his hands, met us beside the open bay door. He did not smile when he saw Claire. I'm glad you weren't driving downhill when this went, he said. Claire's face tightened. Was it cut? Tom looked at me, then back at her. I can't say that as a legal conclusion, but the line failed in a way I don't like. Clean abrasion. Wrong location. No rust pattern. He handed her a printed photo and a receipt marked safety hold. I wrote what I can prove. Your lawyer can use it how he uses it. Claire took the paper. Her hands did not shake this time. That's why the pedal felt soft yesterday, she said. Probably, Tom said. You did right not to drive it. I took photos of the bay, the line, and the receipt, only after Claire said, document it. Not my call. Hers. When we got back in the SUV, she sat quietly with the mechanic's report on her lap. Adrian always liked making things look accidental, she said. I started the engine. Then we make the record look deliberate. She looked at me. That almost sounded like comfort. It was evidence-based comfort. I'll take it. We reached Port Haven at 1:43. The town rose from the harbor in layers. Boatyards, clapboard shops, old brick municipal buildings, courthouse steps worn smooth by generations of arguments. Seagulls circled over the marina. The air smelled of salt, diesel, and sun-warmed rope. Mr. Davis waited outside the records office in a navy suit and raincoat he did not need in the bright weather. He was in his 60s, narrow-eyed, with the posture of someone who trusted documents more than people. He greeted Claire first. Did you bring the original packets? Claire lifted the document bag. Yes. He looked at me. Mr. Scott. Mr. Davis, thank you for getting her here. She got herself here. I drove. Claire glanced at me. Davis's mouth moved like he almost approved. Inside the records office, fluorescent lights hummed over rows of filing cabinets and public terminals. Adrian Lewis stood near the counter with his lawyer and a woman I recognized from a real estate brokerage website. That meant he had brought a sale contact before ownership was resolved. Claire saw her too. Her fingers tightened once around the document bag. Then she walked forward. No hesitation, no waiting for me. Good Adrian smiled when we approached. It was the kind of smile that expected a reaction. Claire, he said, you made it. I'm surprised. I know. His eyes flicked to me. And you brought the sailor. Ethan drove, she said. Davis represents me. You can speak to him. Adrian's smile thinned. This is a family matter. Davis stepped in. This is a title matter. The clerk called Claire's name. She opened the document bag, removed the trust packet, tax receipts, restoration contracts, the mechanic's report, and a letter from her father confirming her possession and maintenance of the property. The clerk reviewed the originals, stamped the first page, then the second, then the third. Each stamp landed like a small door locking. Counterclaim filed. Transfer review paused. Emergency sale blocked. Adrian's lawyer asked for a recess. Davis denied him the satisfaction of looking pleased. The title company will receive the freeze notice within the hour, he said. Any sale activity after this point becomes evidence of bad faith. The realtor quietly closed her folder. That was the moment Adrian understood the day had changed. He turned on Claire. You think this saves you? You can't maintain that place. The roof on the carriage house is collapsing. The workshop needs electrical work. You don't have the money. Claire took one sheet from the packet. I have signed restoration contracts covering the next 18 months. 2 of them were delayed because someone sent anonymous warnings to my clients claiming the title was already lost. Adrian's face went still. Davis looked at me, then back at Adrian. We will be adding client interference to the sanctions notice. And the mechanic's report, Claire said. Adrian's lawyer went rigid. Claire placed the report on the table. My brake line failed this morning. The mechanic documented a clean abrasion in the wrong location. I am not accusing anyone in this room without investigation. But if you try to argue my absence should count against me after this, that report enters the record too. Adrian did not speak. His lawyer touched his sleeve. Don't respond. For once, Adrian listened. The meeting lasted 2 more hours. Adrian tried to push a settlement. Claire would keep the duplex, but surrender the carriage house and back lot. Davis advised her not to answer immediately. Claire asked for 5 minutes. We stepped outside, onto the courthouse lawn. The afternoon sun had shifted lower. Claire stood under a sycamore tree with the settlement draft in her hand. I could take it, she said. You could. I keep the duplex. I keep the workshop. You lose the carriage house. It's half collapsed. You told me in the car, your father called the workshop a second chance with walls. She looked at the paper. The carriage house was supposed to be the classroom. There it was. Not just land, future. Adrian had chosen the one piece that looked least valuable because he knew it carried the most meaning. I can't tell you what to give up, I said. I know, but I can tell you what I see. He tried to stop you from arriving. He brought a realtor before title review. He contacted your clients. Now he wants the part of the property that turns your work into something bigger than survival. Claire's eyes stayed on the settlement draft. You think it's a trap. I think it's a smaller cage. She breathed out slowly, then tore the settlement draft in half. Not dramatically. Neatly. Once down the middle, then again. I restore broken things, she said. I don't surrender them because someone else can't see what they are yet. That was the moment I stopped thinking of her as my neighbor who needed a ride. She was the fight. I was only transportation. Back inside, Claire declined the settlement. Davis filed the amended sanctions notice before 5. The title freeze went through before 6. Adrian left without speaking to either of us. When the records office closed, Claire stood on the sidewalk with her suitcase beside her and the document bag lighter in her hand. For the first time all day, she looked tired enough to admit it. "There's a motel near the marina," I said. "Davis booked 2 rooms before we arrived." She looked surprised. "You knew we might have to stay?" "I brought a backpack. That was not just for the boat survey. I always pack for the plan failing." She looked at me for a long second, then laughed quietly. "You are impossible. Prepared." Impossible and prepared. I accepted that. At the motel, I walked her to her door and stopped 3 feet away. "Davis is in room 12. I'm in 14. You're 13. Bolt locks from the inside. If Adrian calls, don't answer. If he knocks, call Davis and me. If you want dinner, we can eat at the diner across the street where people argue about tides." Claire held the room key in one hand. "You're still giving me options." "Yes." Her expression softened. "Dinner," she said, "but no tide arguments. I can't control local culture." Dinner was quiet, not awkward, just honest in the way people get after a long day when there is nothing left to perform. Claire ate clam chowder, read Davis's summary email twice, and finally put her phone face down when I said, "The court record will not improve if you stare at it harder." She pointed her spoon at me. "You have a very bossy relationship with anxiety. I give it tasks. Does that work?" "No, but it keeps anxiety from becoming management." She laughed. Then her face changed. "My father used to say the same thing about old houses," she said. "Give the damage a job. If a beam is cracked but still load-bearing, brace it before you replace it. If a door is warped, find out where the pressure changed. And if the pressure is a brother," she smiled without humor, "then file sanctions." That was the first time she spoke about Adrian without sounding afraid of his next move. The next morning, before my boat survey, Claire asked to see the marina. We walked along the docks while gulls screamed overhead and fishermen unloaded crates of silver fish. My surveyor was late, which all but guaranteed he would talk too much. Claire stopped beside an old wooden skiff pulled onto a cradle. "This needs new ribs," she said. "You restore boats too?" "Wood is wood. It just complains differently near water." I looked at the cracked hull. "You can read damage fast. So can you." "That's my job." "Mine, too." The surveyor eventually arrived, talked too much, and still passed the inspection. I finished by noon. Claire finished a call with Davis by the fuel dock. When she came back, she looked lighter. "Week 6 settlement hearing," she said. "No emergency sale. No default. No transfer until then. That gives you time." "It gives me enough." We drove home that afternoon. No chase. No storm. No dramatic breakdown. Just highway, coffee, and the kind of silence that forms after 2 people have seen each other under pressure and not looked away. "Halfway back," Claire said. "I meant what I said yesterday." "Which part?" "Don't let me go back alone." I kept my eyes on the road. "You didn't." "No," she said, "but I think I meant more than the courthouse." That sentence stayed with us all the way back to the neighborhood. The next 6 weeks were quieter but not easier. Adrian's lawyer tried to delay. Davis answered with sanctions. The title company froze all sale activity. Claire contacted every client Adrian had scared and sent them the stamped title notice. 2 came back immediately. 1 waited. Owen Brooks at the marina sent her a small repair job. An antique chart table with warped drawers. "You do restoration?" he asked over speaker. Claire looked at me. "I do now." That job paid her apprentices for another month. The carriage house roof was still half collapsed, but Claire started drawing classroom plans again. I saw the sketches through her workshop window at night. Benches, tool racks, a chalkboard, a shelf made from salvaged oak. One evening, she knocked on my door, holding a small strip of old wood. "Do you know anything about dry rot?" she asked. "I know enough to fear it." "Good. Come look afraid in my workshop." That became our pattern. She asked questions about wood beams, marina repairs, wind exposure. I asked questions about why a door from 1890 still mattered. She answered every time. "Because someone built it to last," she said once, running her hand over a scarred frame. "And if it didn't, someone else cared enough to try again." I thought about that longer than I should have. On the morning of the week 6 hearing, Claire stood beside the same SUV in almost the same place as the first day. This time, she did not look cornered. She wore the same navy cap, the same cream cardigan, and held the same suitcase. But the document bag rested easily at her side, not clutched like a life raft. I had my backpack over one shoulder. The street was bright again. The house behind her looked calm. "You ready?" I asked. She smiled. "Yes." At the hearing, Adrian signed because his lawyer made him. He withdrew all claims to the duplex, workshop, carriage house, and coastal lot. He acknowledged the secondary trust. He agreed to send correction letters to the clients he had contacted. Any future challenge would trigger legal fees and sanctions. The mechanic's report remained attached to the file, not as a criminal charge, but as a record of why Claire's absence could never be weaponized again. Claire signed last. When the final stamp landed, she did not cry. She looked at the papers, then at Adrian. "It is over in every place that matters," she said. He left with nothing but his expensive suit and the kind of silence that follows a man who finally ran out of leverage. That afternoon, we drove back without rushing. Near sunset, Claire asked me to stop at the turnout above the harbor road. We stood beside the SUV while the ocean turned copper below us. She reached into her pocket and placed a small brass key in my palm. "What is this?" "Workshop key." I looked at her. She nodded toward the road home. "When you come back from Port Haven, or the marina, or wherever you go when you need distance, use this door." "I'm gone a lot." "I know. My life is tide charts, inspection windows, and leaving before sunrise." "I restore houses," Claire said. "I understand waiting." "You deserve more than waiting." "I'm not asking to wait for half a life." She looked down at the key in my hand. "I'm asking to be part of the place you come back to." Wind moved across the turnout. Not storm wind, evening wind. Steady and clean. I closed my fingers around the key. "I don't know if I'm good at staying." Claire smiled. "You were good at driving." "That is not the same." "No," she said, "but it got us here." Months later, the carriage house had new windows, new beams, and a sign over the door that read, "Second Chance Workshop." Claire taught the first class on a Saturday morning. 6 teenagers learned how to sand a damaged table without destroying its history. I stood at the back with coffee, pretending I was there to fix a loose hinge. Claire did not let me pretend for long. "Ethan," she called, "tell them what you said about beams." I looked at the students. "Beams announce failure more honestly than people," I said. "Listen before they break." A kid in the front row wrote that down. Claire smiled at me like I had said something useful, instead of accidentally bleak. After class, she walked me outside to the driveway. The same SUV waited there. My backpack was in the rear seat. Her suitcase stood beside the porch. "Another trip?" I asked. "Port Haven school supply pickup," she said. "The classroom needs tulle aprons, and Owen found a cabinet I apparently cannot live without." "You need a driver?" "No," she said. "I need a travel partner." I looked at the suitcase, then at the house, then at her. This time, nobody was trapping her. No emergency notice. No brother waiting at the records office. No deadline designed to erase her. She was choosing the road because she had somewhere to go, and she was asking me because she wanted me with her. I picked up my backpack. "Then don't let me go back alone," I said. Claire laughed. The sound carried across the driveway, warm and easy. For a man who had spent years packing as if every departure had to be temporary, that laugh felt dangerously like a permanent address. I opened the passenger door for her. She raised an eyebrow. "Still giving me options?" "Always." "Good." She put her suitcase in the back herself, climbed in, and waited while I got behind the wheel. The sun dropped behind the houses. The road to Port Haven stretched ahead. This time, it did not feel like escape. It felt like going somewhere together. Closing thoughts. Core lesson. Real love gives safe passage without taking over the wheel. Green flag. They help you reach the fight, then stand back while you win it yourself. Please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this. The end.